I was 59 when I met Laura. Too old, I thought, to fall head over heels again. My first marriage had ended years earlier. The silence of an empty house, my only steady companion. I'd gotten used to it, coffee alone, evenings with the television humming, the occasional dinner with friends. It wasn't joy, but it was manageable. If you've ever rushed into love because it felt like your last chance, you'll understand this story. Like this, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for the next stories, where the honeymoon ends and reality sets in. Then Laura walked into my life at a friend's fundraiser. She was 10 years younger, full of energy, with that kind of laugh that makes a room stop for a second. She touched my arm when we spoke, leaned in when she laughed at my stories. It had been a long time since anyone made me feel seen. We moved fast. Too fast, maybe. Within a year, we were standing under a white arch in the backyard of a rented estate, her friends snapping photos while mine clapped politely. She looked radiant in that dress, and when she took my hand and said, "Forever," I believed her. I wanted to believe her. For a man my age, the idea of starting over was terrifying, but she made me feel younger, sharper, alive. I thought, maybe this is how it's supposed to be the second time around. The honeymoon was quiet, just a week in the mountains. She posted photos of us by the fireplace, wine glasses in hand. I looked at those pictures later, after everything unraveled, and realized something I hadn't seen then. Her smile never reached her eyes. But at the time, I pushed doubts aside. After all, I finally had someone to come home to, someone who held my arm in public, someone who said she loved me. That felt like salvation. Little did I know, salvation has a short shelf life. It didn't take long for the shine to wear off. Barely 2 weeks after the wedding, the little things started feeling big. Laura hated how I left the newspaper folded on the kitchen counter. She rolled her eyes when I took my time with coffee in the mornings. She sighed when I put on the same worn jacket I'd had for years. At first, I laughed it off. Second marriages come with adjustments, I told myself. We were two grown people with our own ways. Of course, it wouldn't be seamless. But her sighs turned into sharp words. "Why do you always, you never, that kind of thing?" The nights were worse. She'd curl up on her side of the bed, scrolling on her phone, the light glowing against her face until past midnight. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering how a house could feel so empty with two people in it. One evening over dinner, she said, "You're too set in your ways. I don't think you even want to change." I didn't know what to say. At my age, you don't reinvent yourself for anyone, not even for love. I wasn't trying to be stubborn. I just was who I was. What struck me wasn't the arguments themselves. It was the way she seemed almost disappointed in who I really was, like she'd married the idea of me, but didn't like the man in front of her. I remember washing dishes one night, the water hot on my hands, and thinking, this doesn't feel like a honeymoon. This feels like the beginning of the end. It's a hard truth to swallow when you realize the person you married isn't actually seeing you. They're trying to edit you. And no one can survive being edited forever. The first real crack showed up with money. Laura started bringing it up more and more. What we had, what we didn't, what she thought I should be spending. "Why keep driving that old sedan?" she'd ask. "You can afford better. We should look like we're living, not just surviving." At first, I thought it was just pride. But then it turned sharper. She wanted weekend trips, jewelry, fancy dinners with her friends. Every time I hesitated, she called me stingy, said I was living like an old man afraid of his own shadow. It wasn't just the money. It was the way she looked at me when I wasn't dressed up or when I forgot to shave. It was like she wanted a polished version of me to parade around, not the man who sat at the table in his slippers reading the sports section. One night, she let it slip. "When I said yes to you, I thought life would be different, bigger, more exciting." There was the truth. She hadn't married me. She'd married what she thought I could give her. From then on, the mask never fit the same. Publicly, she still held my arm, smiled at the right moments, told people how lucky she was. But at home, her distance grew. She spent more nights out with friends, more weekends busy. I stopped asking where she went. I'd sit in the living room with the TV humming, her perfume faint on the air long after she'd left, and I'd think, This is lonelier than being single ever was. It hit me that the woman who once made me feel seen didn't actually see me at all. She saw a stage, and I was just a prop standing on it. And I knew, sooner or later, that stage would collapse. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. No shouting, no slammed doors. Laura came into the living room, sat on the edge of the couch, and said in a flat voice, "This isn't working. I want a divorce." I remember looking at her, trying to find some flicker of the woman who once laughed at my stories and touched my arm like she'd known me forever. But there was nothing, just a tired look, like she'd been waiting for me to nod and set her free. I didn't fight it. Maybe I should have been angry. Maybe I should have begged her to stay. But the truth is, I felt a strange relief wash over me. Deep down, I knew she'd been gone long before she said the word divorce. We signed the papers within weeks. No kids, no years of shared memories to untangle. Just a house full of things that suddenly meant nothing. She took what she wanted, and I didn't argue. Some things aren't worth holding on to when the person tied to them never really wanted you in the first place. The hardest part wasn't losing her. It was facing the embarrassment. Neighbors whispering. Friends asking careful questions. My daughter from my first marriage, shaking her head and saying, "Dad, I tried to warn you." I carried that weight quietly. At my age, divorce doesn't just bruise your heart, it bruises your pride. But sitting alone in that too-quiet house, I realized something. This wasn't the end of me. It was just the end of a mistake. Sometimes divorce isn't a failure. Sometimes it's the clearest choice left. The first few weeks alone were strange. I'd wake up and expect to hear her moving around in the kitchen, but the house stayed quiet. At dinner, I'd set out 2 plates before catching myself and sliding one back into the cabinet. Divorce leaves little ghosts like that. Habits that take time to fade. But slowly, the quiet started to feel different. Not heavy, not suffocating. Just mine. I started walking more. Called up old friends I'd neglected. Took my daughter out to lunch without worrying if Laura would complain. I even pulled that old sedan out on a long drive through the countryside, windows down, radio humming. For the first time in years, I didn't feel judged for being myself. People asked if I regretted marrying her. Truth is, I don't. Regret is heavy, and I don't carry what I don't have to. That short marriage taught me something valuable. Love built on pretense can't survive, and you can't spend your life trying to perform for someone who only wants the stage version of you. I'm 60 now. I drink my coffee slow, wear my old jacket, and fold the newspaper however I damn well please. And if that means I spend my days alone, so be it. I'd rather be alone in honesty than married in lies. Divorce isn't the ending I wanted, but it gave me back something I'd forgotten, my own peace. And that, I've learned, is worth more than any forever that wasn't real to begin with. If you stayed through to the end of this story, thank you. These stories aren't about pity. They're about truth, resilience, and finding freedom after loss. Hit like if this resonated, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe for more stories of life, love, and lessons learned.